Welcome. In this lesson we're going to get started with modeling the bottle. If you've just opened up your scene, we're going to go ahead and come under File and set our scene, our project, so that it finds the directory that we created, our project folder. So I'm going down here and selecting my project and hitting Set, and Maya will be able to locate the various assets and source images that it requires. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in an image plane here in the front view, much like we did with the wine glass. I'm going to come under View, Image Plane, Import Image, and I'm going to go ahead and select this one and bring it in. And you can see it's pretty small here. It's only taking up about 2.5 units. So I'm going to increase that size on here. I'm under the Image Plane Shape 1, and I'm down here under Placements, and I'm just going to bump up the width to 20. I'm going to use this one over here, the second one over, and I'm going to hover over the X channel, hold the Control key down, and just click and drag until that's on center. Okay, and then I'm going to move this up in Y. Looks like we've got about 6 units. Okay, actually that's right on, so that looks good. Okay, and then I'm just going to push it back in Z to get it off the grid there so we can see it, and that's -10. So that pushes it back 10 units on the grid. You can see that out here on our perspective view. Okay, and instead of using a curve to draw this out like we did the last time, we're actually going to just start with a polygon primitive using a cylinder. It's this third icon over here on the polygon shelf. I'm going to click that, W on the keyboard, and I'm just going to drag that up into position here, about halfway up. Hit R on the keyboard, and I'm going to scale it uniformly until it reaches about the center right there. So I'm not dead center right there, I'm just a little off. So I'm going to use this side, the positive side here, to reference as I'm modeling, and just move it down a little bit and scale it in Y to right about there. And I want the top edge here to be right about where the curve starts happening. We can actually lower that down just a little bit, right about there, and then move it down. Okay, so that looks good. And we need some subdivisions in there. I'm going to go to the channel box, Layer Editor, and under Inputs, I'm going to take the divisions in height. I'm clicking on that in the middle mouse over here. I'm going to put 4 divisions. And for the subdivisions on the axis, 20 is a little too high, so we want to take that down to about 12, okay? And we'll come back and smooth that, but we want to work lower polygon initially, and then we'll come back and smooth later on, okay? So I'm going to go to panel layout. I'm going to come under panels. So layouts, I'm going to go 2 panels side by side here. So we've got our perspective view here, so you can kind of watch along and see what's happening in perspective. And I'm going to be modeling in the front view, okay? So I'm going to select the faces over here to extrude. I'm going to drag a marquee. Okay, so I just want to select the top faces, and I'm going to do that by just drawing a marquee across the top, holding down Control, drawing a second marquee across the faces on the side, which will deselect them. Okay, so now I'm left with just the faces on the top. And I'm going to extrude that. I'm going to come under Edit Mesh and hit Extrude. It's also Control E is the hotkey for that. Okay, and I'm going to actually center these over world space here, and that's the toggle right here. So that's object space, world space. You can see it's centered on the grid right now, which is where I want it. And I'm going to pull it up in Y. Activate scale by hitting the top cube here. You can hit any of these cubes, it will activate it. And then I'm going to come to the center one and click and drag to the left. That's going to scale it down uniformly. And I'm going to push it down just a little bit and actually take it out to right about there. Okay? And these are kind of broad strokes here, so we're going to come back and refine it later. I know this curve right here is probably going to need another edge along here, but I'm just going to hit the broad strokes here initially. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control E. So it's going to extrude again. We've got our second extrude now. And I'm going to bring it up to about here. And activate scale and scale it in uniformly to about there. Okay, and Control E again. And move that dialog box up so we can activate this back into world space. Okay, I'm going to pull it up to about here, scale that in, Control E again, and I'm going to pull it up to here in Y. Okay, Control E, center it on world space, and I'm going to bring it up to the curve here at its widest point and scale it out uniformly. So you can kind of see over here in the perspective view what's going on. Okay. And over here, Control E again. Center it on world space. I'm going to bring it up to about here. And we're going to scale that one in. Okay. Control E again. Dialog box out. And I'm going to take it up to where this lip starts. And we're going to scale that in. One last extrude here, and we're just going to pull that straight up to the top. Okay, I'm going to hit Q on the keyboard to end that process, go back to object mode, select it, and over here I'm going to hit 3 on the keyboard, and we can take a look at what we've got. Okay, so it's very soft. We're going to have to put some tension lines in here with the Insert Edge Loop tool. And I actually want to come back here and delete the faces on the top. We don't need those, so I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard and actually back up to where we had our faces selected. Okay, and just go ahead and delete those. All right, we're not going to need those. So let's come back down here and start inserting some edge loops. I've got the Insert Edge Loop tool out here on my shelf, and just right mouse click and delete that and show you how I put that out here. Under Edit Tools, we have Insert Edge Loop, and I'm going to hold down the Shift and Control key and click on it, and that will place it out here on the shelf. Okay, and I'm just activating that, and I know we're going to need one down here at the base because we saw that it was very soft for that edge. I know we're going to need one right here, and we're going to scale this up uniformly to round that out. Up just a little bit, and I'm going to double click on this one. This one needs to be widened just a little bit, scaled up. Okay, activate that again right here, and click and drag. I'm going to put one right about here, so we've got a little bit harder edge around there. Okay, and I think we'll need one right here as well. Scale that one up. And then for the lip here, this is fairly pixelated, but you can kind of see it over here. It's got a couple wider edges that come out around the lip here. So we're going to insert one right here along the top, second one right here, and we've got a little space. And this is going to be our second one, but we're going to drop an edge loop in right here for tension, and that one needs to get scaled in just a little. Okay, right about there. Okay, so it should look something like that. Okay, I'm going to come back out to object mode, and I'm going to select those faces. Okay, so we're going to extrude these 2 rows of faces right here. I'm going to drag a marquee across one, hold down the Shift key, and drag another marquee across those. And you can see that it's selected around there. I'm going to frame up on that. That was F on the keyboard. Okay. And I'm going to hit Extrude. And we're going to just pull the thickness out to about, in my case, it's going to be 0.1. Okay. So it's going to look something like that. All right, and we're going to hit Q on the keyboard, go back to object mode, and I'm going to just come over here. We're going to focus in on the perspective view now. And we hit 3 on the keyboard, we can see what it looks like in preview mode for smoothing, and these go a little bit soft. We want to create just a little bit harder edge on there. Instead of using an edge loop around here, we're going to use bevel, which will create a little more realistic look, especially when we get into lighting. It will pick up the specularity from the lights. So I'm going to select edge here. I'm going to double click on that edge. Come under here, hold the shift key down, double click on that one, as well as this one down here. And come back and grab this one. So I've got a total of 4. If I go to wireframe, I can see a little better over here. I've got 4 rows of edges selected. Okay. And 5 on the keyboard to go back. Okay. And under Edit Mesh, we're going to select Bevel and click on that. And let me just zoom in here. You can take a closer look at what it's doing. So if we select fraction and we slide it up, this is going to create a softer bevel versus a harder edge one right here. So we want a little bit of a curve in there, so I'm going to put mine at 0.5. Okay, and you can see what that's done all the way around here. Okay, and I'm going to come back to object mode and select that. And we can take a look at our bottle now. So I'm going to come down here and just select this bottom edge by double clicking on it, and I'm going to scale it in uniformly. So we've got a kind of a nice curve right there. And I think this edge can come down just a little more. Okay, like that. All right, so we are going to be placing a label on here, and I'm going to just make a little room for that by shifting some of these loops into position. So I'm pulling them up a little. Okay. And now that we've got that all done, the last thing we need to do is just extrude the bottle so we can create the overall thickness for it. And this bottle is going to be transparent. If it weren't, we could just create a kind of fake edge right here that wrapped around and went down inside a little bit, and we wouldn't notice that, but since we are going to have transparency on here, we do need to create the thickness of the bottle for the entire bottle. So I'm going to go back to object mode, select it, and we're going to extrude. And if I pull the thickness out, it's going to kind of change the overall shape of our bottle, which we don't want. So I'm going to do something that we don't normally do, which is a negative number. You can see that it's inverting the normals. It's flipped them the opposite direction, and that happens when you have a negative number. And I think if we go negative 0.1, that should be a nice thickness there for the glass. And we're going to have to come back and correct our normals now. So if I go to object mode, if I were to come under display polygons, I'm going to tear this menu off here. And if I select face normals, those are actually the ones on the inside pointing out. So let me change the size of them. Take them down quite small like that. Okay, you can see the ones on the inside are right on top of the other ones, so they're doubling up. We hit 4 on the keyboard, so you can see the direction of them now. They are pointing inward, which we don't want. We want them pointing outward. So I'm going to go back to 5 on the keyboard, and we're going to come under Mesh Display, under Normals. We're going to just select Reverse, and that should flip them around the correct way. Okay, so we can see those now. There's 4 on the keyboard, so they're now facing the correct direction. Okay, I'm going to click on Face Normals again to get them to go away, and just close all that down. Okay, so there's our bottle. If we hit 3 on the keyboard, you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to come under my outliner first here and just call this, I'm going to call this Bottle 1. And I'm going to duplicate that. That's Control D. And it's created a second bottle. going to go back to my bottle 1 here and just hide it, Control H. I select that. Under visibility, you can see that that is off over here. Okay. So with that hidden, I'm going to come under bottle 2, and this is the one we're going to work with. I'm going to hit F on the keyboard to frame that up. And this is the one we're going to manipulate and start deforming with a lattice. Okay, and under the divisions here, I'm going to bump that up to 6. And right mouse click over the lattice points, and we can start pulling some of these around to kind of change the shape of it. Okay. Okay, you can bow that out like that. And maybe pull this down a little like that. Okay, I'm going to come back here and I want to kind of pull these points around a little bit more. I'm not going to get it with the lattice. I'll be able to do it with vertices. Okay, so moving down here, pull that out a little bit. And I don't want to distort it too much down here because we've got that label that's going to be going on here. And I want to keep that fairly uniform just so we don't have a challenging UV layout for our first attempt at doing UV layouts. Okay, pull that point up, that, and here we go, something like that. And I might just rotate that a little like that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to leave the lower part alone here. I can maybe just pull this around a little bit on the bottom here. It shouldn't bother the UVs too much down here. Okay, maybe just this row right here. Pull it down like that. Okay. I'm going to come over here to the outliner, select the lattice, as well as bottle 2. All 3 of these right here. And under Edit, Delete by Type, we're going to delete the history on that. That gets rid of the lattice. Alright. And then I'm going to come under, grab some of the vertices on here, and kind of manipulate them a little bit. Pull them up. Push them down a little bit. Do something like that. And if I want to use the soft select, I can double click on the tool here and select that, and it usually defaults at 5. You want to probably bring it down. You can see the area that it affects on there as you kind of click and let go. So maybe something like around a 1. So if I pull that now, there's going to be a nice fall off to that. Okay. Kind of stretch things around here. Okay. All right, so pretty happy with that. I'm kind of thinking about maybe just sort of wobbling it over a little bit like that. Okay. And maybe grabbing a couple of these, pulling them up. Okay. So back to object mode here. There's my bottle. Okay. Close down these tools. I'm going to uncheck soft select and come back here. So completed modeling the bottle, and we're going to come back in the next lesson and do the UV layouts for the label.